Melissa Ricci moved from the world of professional dance into fitness in 1995. Becoming a certified personal trainer, she began sharing her passion for dance and fitness with a diverse clientele at some of New York City's leading health clubs. She then attended the prestigious Kane School of Core Integration, which is known for its intensive Pilates curriculum and concentration in core muscle anatomy. With her extensive training, she started Base Fitness with her husband in 2002 to better address individuals' muscular imbalances and physical limitations that often hindered their sports performance and activities of daily living. She teaches Pilates on the pier for New York Parks and Recreation, where I first found her classes. And she joins us today to talk about her wide-ranging career. So thank you for being on.
Yay, thank you for having me.
So tell me first, what is your favorite outdoor activity?
It's walking. But it's so boring, I know, but walking. And because I live in New York City, I don't need a car and I can walk. And I'm a people watcher. So it kind of is great. I can walk anywhere. And especially right now, because I really don't want to get on the subway.
Yeah.
So I've been walking everywhere and just exploring the city in all shapes and forms, and definitely interesting people are out right now.
What's the craziest thing that you've seen, either like on your walks now or like just in life in general in New York?
There's this contingency of homeless people that one in particular, this gentleman, and he moves around the Upper West Side a great deal. And he always has a chair. And I just don't understand where he's gotten this chair from. And they're different chairs though. Sometimes it's like a straight back chair. Sometimes it's a chair on wheels. And he really goes all over with his chair and his belongings. He's got like a headband. He looks like a throwback from the 60s.
Oh.
And he's with different clusters of people. And so I guess on one hand, I'm always so sad when I see all the homeless people, because I think there's a reason they're homeless. Like, how did they get there? What is their story? Often mental illness is a part of that. But I'm thinking, this man must have been such an interesting human being. Like, who was he? And how is it that he has the wherewithal to have a chair at all times? And then he sits in it. And then he gets up and he moves it around. And also he's near Trader Joe's a lot of times. And so you see him out there. I don't know. And so that's part of like the whole people idea, and like, who are these people? And yeah, my heart is often like, how did they get there? How did they get there? And how could I help them? I don't know how I can help them. So I
Yeah.
think that's the most interesting thing.
Yeah, thank you. And what is your favorite Pilates pose?
Oh, hands down, teaser. So that's where we roll up and we come up to a balance. There's many variations to it, and it's one of the harder ones. That's why it's called teaser, I think. But anybody can do it in different forms, and depending on the day you're having, it sort of puts all the work together, because it just requires flexion, extension. I don't know, it just feels good.
That's great. What's your favorite type of Pilates class that you teach?
I'd say flow. I like to move. I really like to move. And then, if we meet obstacles along the way, that we can kind of like work through that. And you can always backtrack from it, but I think that comes from my dance background, that I just like to move. I really like to just move.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about your dance background? So you started off in dance.
I did. I started off as what I like to call like a Dolly Dinkle dance studio, like my local studio. My mom was like, you need to do something. I was like 4. And she said, so the local dance studio. It was like Linda's dance studio. And so I started doing that. That's where I met my best friend, actually, that I'm still friends with to this day. Yes, we've gone through many stages of life together. And as I started to get a little bit older, I really loved ballet, but they didn't have a strong ballet program. And I grew up in New Haven, and so the Connecticut Ballet was there. So I auditioned for their school, which I guess it would be like what a pre-professional program is today, but they didn't really call it that. And then as I studied more intensively, I was invited to be in their junior company. And so I was able to dance at the Schubert in New Haven, which is actually, this is before it was renovated. So it was kind of like, is this stage going to hold or is it going to collapse? The ceilings look a little, I don't know. But it had such a history to it because for years, so many shows had their start there before they came to Broadway. That's where they would do their trials. So, and then I moved to New York City. I attended NYU. I did not major in dance. My mother was insistent that I knew how to dance. She was not paying for a degree in dance. So I picked English literature.
Great.
You know, which I love to read and write, so that worked out really well. And then I just, during my summers of school, I did summer stock and regional theater, and I did soaps and off-Broadway and all that kind of good stuff for many, many years. I did have a major injury. I dislocated my knee while I was on tour. So that wasn't so great. And then I ended up subsequently having 2 knee surgeries, which sort of started to shorten my dance career a little bit because it was very painful. And I'd also been in a car accident.
Oh my gosh.
So that sort of all coupled together was like a perfect storm. But I always say there's like a positive side to everything, because all the physical therapy I did kind of really led me to personal training and what I do now. So I sort of took a lot of that with me to what I do today. And I have a lot of special population people. I have people with MS and Parkinson's, and I run a cancer exercise group through the Y called Live Strong. So I have a sense of having injured myself and also through dance, that's what you do. You injure yourself. You know, you beat 8 shows a week. You can't not beat your body up. So I just know when someone's in pain, I understand that, and the frustration of trying to get somebody out of pain. And my husband, I mean, that's kind of to tie it together a little bit, how we started Base Fitness. He was a personal trainer, and I actually met him at a gym. It's like a classic story, but I dated somebody else for a little while. And I was still performing at that point. And then he and I just started talking like we were very good friends. And then we ended up dating. And it was like by our second date, it was like, this is the man I'm spending my life with. So, and he felt the same way, which was good because we made each other laugh immediately, which was a good thing. You have to laugh. 27 years later, we are still laughing. But he said, why don't you consider personal training? Because he would talk to me about his clients and they would say, well, have you tried this? Have you tried that? And mainly because of all the PT that I'd done. And so he really kind of pushed me and he said, you can still perform and do this. And then if you decide you don't want to perform, there's something else. And, you know, and when you're a dancer and that's all you do, when you stop dancing, it feels like it's almost like you've left something behind. But I realized I didn't. I brought it with me.
Oh, that's great.
It just took on a new form. You know, so there's like a little period of time where you're like, oh God, you know, because theater becomes, for lack of a better description, like your church. You know, it's just sort of your thing. It's your ritual and all the different people that you meet. But I realized it didn't have to stay there. It did come with me in so many ways. So that's how we started Base Fitness. We just felt like we needed to serve the needs of our clients a little bit better. We have become like the intermediary between if they have physical therapy, and we know that how health insurance works, you get like 5 visits and you're healed. Not really. So we kind of stepped in at that point, and I know it's really like, really, you had shoulder surgery? I don't understand, you know? So we've been able to forge a lot of relationships with PTs and with orthopedists actually, so that we are the go-between to help them kind of function in life.
Wow.
And if clients do have issues, we see them more frequently than a doctor or PT would. So we're like, something's not right. Like, I may not know what it is, but we can like report that back to the doctor so that, you know, they have a better quality of life. I have to say, like, our clients, some of the clients we've had, I think they've known my husband longer than me. So in fact, all of them are like at our wedding, you know. So
amazing.
They're family. They're like family, you know, to us now, and family to our daughter. You know, we've been very fortunate, very lucky And then we branched out. I started teaching more, and the wellness program, actually Pilates on the pier. Um, Again, 6 degrees of separation. My husband's best friend that he grew up with, his mom was a real advocate for the community. She always was. So anytime I teach that class, I think of her, because she passed away about 3 years ago. She was insistent that there needed to be a health and wellness program for the community. And her son worked for the Parks and Rec department. And she was like, you need to find a way to provide some programming. And I know Melissa can do this. And so, I really credit it to her that this is the 19th year, I think, that I've been doing that program.
Wow.
Yeah, which is, I'm like, oh God, am I really that much older?
Oh, that's amazing. I love that programming. I love, like, they have like all of the film
Yes.
on the pier, but then they also have all of those wonderful exercise classes. And now virtually,
Yeah.
so many more people can participate as well.
Which, we always had to cancel if it was raining or there was a thunderstorm or whatever. So now I said, this is amazing that we have this option, because next year, hopefully we'll be outside. But if it's like 100 degrees out, we can say, hey guys, we're going to take it inside where it's safer, and we can still have class.
Wow.
And I've seen the same people for 19 years, which is also crazy. Like in the neighborhood, I'm like, hey, how was your fall and your winter and your spring? And I'll see you in the summer, and some of them have joined the Y, which has been great, because then I do get to see them in the off season, which is,
Amazing.
really
Where is
cool.
Base Fitness located? Where do you guys practice?
So we practice really all over the place. It's in our
Cool.
home now. So we really basically go into people's homes,
Mm-hmm.
or a lot of people have gyms in their buildings now. So we'll go into those buildings. There's some facilities that allow just trainers and clients to come in.
Oh, great.
I am also very fortunate, again, like I love the Y because it's so community oriented, but they allow outside people to come in and work there in the Pilates studio. So I can bring outside clients in. I mean, it is a little bit through the Y, but it's just access to the studio, which is fantastic.
Wow.
And so we're kind of all over the place. And now we are virtual with many, many of our clients. And I have to say, I am so impressed by my 80-something-year-old clients who are like, send me the Zoom link. Okay, I'm ready.
Wow.
And they're like, can you see me? Because I can't see my head, so you probably can't see it. And they're adjusting the angles, and then they're moving it down to the floor.
Oh, good.
It's been awesome. I mean, I miss hugging them, but I'm like, oh, but we stay connected with so many people, which has been great. And a few of them are like, oh, did you repaint the walls? I like that color. I'm like, yeah, let's take a tour.
Yeah.
Oh, look, these are the shelves that Matt's building,
Amazing. Yeah.
So,
What have you guys been up to in quarantine? You were talking a little bit before we started. But.
Right. We've been moving our furniture around. That's really what we've been doing, back and forth, back and forth. And I do say sliders are invaluable underneath your furniture. It just moves so much better.
Oh.
Yeah. In 2 seconds flat, we can move the living room around. But I would say I'm a big organizer. In fact, my family makes fun of me because I burn out my label maker. And they're like, you would label us if you could. I'm like, wow. I would. And everything's labeled, but then they're like, where is the toothpaste? I'm like, in the basket that says toothpaste. But they don't read anything. Nobody reads anything. They still ask me where everything is. So, and reading. I'm a big reader, so I've just been reading a lot of trashy stuff.
What should we be reading? What are your
Oh God. Well, and this isn't trashy. Jennifer Weiner, I love her books, and she just came out with a new book. I wrote it down because I was like, I have to remember because I read everything. What is it? It is Big Summer. It was great. It was so good. And then Kristen Hanna, I love her books. She's just an amazing storyteller. And what was the other? Oh, Emma Straub, All Adults Here. Fabulous.
Okay.
And then I'm kind of doing like some intense stuff with Underground Railroad, which I'm doing little bits at a time. And then I love Doris Kearns Goodwin because she does a lot of historical stuff. And interestingly enough, this one book I'm reading is about presidents in turbulent times.
Wow, how
I'm
timely.
just I'm just looking for inspiration. I'm looking for inspiration. That's all I'm going to say. That's it. But yeah, I mean, I definitely, I do read a great deal. And so, yeah, we've been doing that and cleaning and organizing. And like I said, just, yeah, and vacuuming. I have cats. I vacuum a lot.
What kind of cats do you have?
So we adopted them. They're brothers. One of them is part Maine Coon. So they're both huge. They're like 16 pounds.
Whoa.
They're not fat. They're fluff. They are fluff, but they're like, I know we like do a check on them to make sure they're fit too. We're like a little sausagey in quarantine. I don't know. But they're fluffy and they're big and they're mushes. They're really good, but they misbehave tremendously when I teach. Bless you. Bless you. They sleep for like 20 hours a day, but the 1 hour that I teach, they're like, oh, what can we do?
Yeah, I always see them walking around in the background, which is very fun.
Yeah, or one of them, Diesel especially, likes to put his head right into the camera. And he's just like, oh,
Whoa.
hi. And I always get comments in, like in the chat. And I'm like, guys, are you actually doing class? Or you're just watching my cats? What are you doing? I'm working really hard here. I can't see anybody. I'm sweating. Are you joining me? Come on.
Can you talk about how you got into Pilates? What led you to learn
It was
about
injuries.
it? Okay.
It was, and I had a friend, a fellow dancer who, and this was early on when I was dancing, that they really didn't send dancers to physical therapy, like
Huh.
initially. They were like, oh, go to Pilates, because they really didn't consider dancers athletes, which is odd. Yes, very odd.
Yeah.
Go figure. So I had sprained an ankle very badly, and my friend said, you should really try Pilates because it's non-weight bearing and you'll be able to realign things and rehab the injury. So I did it for a little while. And at the time, Pilates was very expensive, especially for like a starving student and performer. So, so I was like, okay, I'll take what I know. And I did have some ballet teachers that incorporated Pilates at the beginning of classes. But I would say my injuries led me to the teacher trainings that I started to do. And then I was fortunate because the gyms I was at offered different Pilates programs. And so I started to get a taste of it from a teacher perspective. And then I found the Kane School. And I have to say, Kelly Kane, to this day, is like a mentor to me. She's amazing. She's the most knowledgeable person I've ever met. And so like humble and down to earth and incredible. She's like a role model. She's like a woman, like a real woman. And so through the continuing education that the school offers, also I just am constantly being exposed to different ways of thinking about things and trying to help people. And it's cool. It's like very collaborative. Even as a graduate of there, people kind of come together. They have a program called FAMI that's held at Mount Sinai School of Medicine. That's cadaver dissection. So it's awesome. It's like 5 days of intensive anatomy with the professors from Mount Sinai. So we get lectured to on different parts, and each day you deal with a different part of the body. And
Wow.
it's amazing. It was the most amazing experience I'd had, because you look at stuff in books and you look at people, but to actually see how everything connects. Because I just feel very strongly, and Kelly had always enforced this to us, that you need to know the body, you need to know the muscles, because that's your roadmap. When you look at somebody in front of you, why are they rotated? Why are they this way? Why are they that way? And at the end of the day, we're just trying to improve people's quality of life. Whether they're grandmothers, whether they're going to go on a big hike, whether they're going to vacation, whatever, for life. We have to prepare them for life, get them ready for life, as best we can.
That's amazing.
Successful sometimes, not other times, right?
Yeah. I was reading a little bit about Pilates. Joseph Pilates started it, and it was like to help soldiers initially from World War I.
Yes, he figured out a way, and his equipment basically simulates. He realized like some of the soldiers had no legs, so they couldn't sit up. So he created like this pulley system to help them get up to strengthen their
Oh,
core so that their ab muscles were stronger. And then he started, and it was really by chance when he came to the United States that his studio was in with a boxing ring studio. It was on 8th Avenue, actually, in the 50s. And I have a client who's, I think it was his uncle or maybe his grandfather that boxed in this studio. So he was like in weird 6 degrees. And I was either a floor below or above. I could be historically a little wrong on that. It was a dance company. And so they started to reach out to him to help to help the dancers. So that's how he became synonymous with dance a little bit. But he really did start out from a therapeutic recovery perspective. And then it branched out. And I always love when my male clients are like, oh, Pilates, that's for dancers. I'm like, Joseph Pilates was a man.
It started with the army.
Exactly. You can't get more macho than that. I'm like, come on, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Athletes need to do this, And it is a different approach, actually, when you work with men versus women in terms of the flow of a class. And their appeal to athleticism and wanting to really kind of move. They like to move a little bit more. And then you can kind of backtrack later to fill in the pieces. So it's interesting. Yeah, when I work with my female clients, they're a little more methodical and a little more like, wait, how do I put that together? And they'll spend time working on little things, whereas men will kind of go through it. And that's a general statement. I do have male clients that are like, I don't understand how this works. Can you go through this one piece with me? And everyone's a little different, Some people, they learn quicker, they learn slower, they just don't want to deal with details, so you kind of go in the back door.
Wow, that's really interesting. If someone wanted to get started on Pilates, what should they be doing?
I think finding a basic class. That's what I always say. Go to basics, and understanding the vocabulary, because it's its own vocabulary, and knowing what does neutral spine mean for you, because it's different for everybody. Making sure you're not in pain ever in your back or your neck, because that's the biggest thing. A lot of times people get into postures and poses and they're like, this really hurts, like strains. It doesn't feel good. I encourage a lot of people that I work with, when I teach group classes, I'll say to them, they'll come to me and say, I have all these questions, and they work with me maybe once, one-on-one. And I said, that helps me, because then when I look at you in class, I have a better sense of what it is you need to kind of work on. And I say, ask questions. Even if somebody can't do that one-on-one, it's not feasible for them. I always say, ask your instructor questions. And if the instructor does not answer questions, find a different instructor. Because it's important to really understand what it's about, and making sure you put the pieces together. It's like a big onion. That's how I think of Pilates. Like you peel the layers. And sometimes it's a little smelly, might make you want to cry. And then other times it's super yummy, depending on how you've cooked it. So you just have to be patient. I've been cooking a lot also during quarantine.
Great.
And I'm not a cook necessarily, I will tell you that.
Yeah. I am too now. As of now.
Right, exactly. My
Yeah.
mother's thrilled. My mother's like, finally, and I tried for all those years, but she didn't listen. I'm like, I'm okay. I'm a little better now,
That's great. And do you think Pilates is good for this time? Like the stress of everything, anxiety? What would you say to that?
Oh, completely. Yeah, because the breathing that's involved, the movement that's involved.
Mhm.
I tend to like Pilates because it does move. And so for me, it's like a moving meditation. And I can kind of get out of my head a little bit as I'm going through the class. I do often throw elements of yoga into my Pilates here and there, because I think they do mesh well together. Some things are inherently a little different than others, but some people don't like the stillness of yoga. So Pilates appeals a little bit better. But I say you can find the stillness within Pilates and then maybe go to the yoga. But breathing, I think the breathing is essential. And we have to move because we're stuck at home. We can move a little more now. But that stay at home was a little intense. It was definitely, and you know, I'm so proud of New Yorkers in general. Like we did it. We stayed in our 2x4 spaces.
Oh
We
my
were so
gosh.
good. We were good. We were good. We like respected, at least I felt in the building that I'm in, everybody respected each other. You know, people were so good. They were so good. And cheering for the healthcare workers, because we happen to have a terrace. We're very lucky. We saw all these terraces and all these people. I was like, oh, that's who lives there. Those are my neighbors. Oh, hi. And so we would say hi to everybody at night. And so now it's really kind of cool. Like if you see them on the street, you're like, hey, yeah, you live across the street. How you doing? Okay. And we, walk on. So community came together. Let's hope we can hold it together through the fall and the winter.
Yeah, I hope so. New York strong, like Cuomo
That's
keeps saying. Yes.
that's right. And I just want other states to listen to that. I'm like, guys, together. We have to do this together. It's not like individuals, like together.
Yeah. I think New
You
York
know?
is doing so well too because like everyone knows someone who was affected or like you
Yeah.
yourself were affected, and so it's like amazing to see everyone on the street wearing a mask and like very respectful. Uh,
Yeah. No,
yeah,
it gives me heart. It's like I'm proud. I
yeah.
kind of go,
Like
yeah.
I'm from New York. We did it. Like we worked hard.
I
Yeah.
know, I know. I was laughing at one point when we saw my brother-in-law, and actually my husband's three of his brothers. He has four brothers, three of them
Oh,
in Baltimore, and a couple of them were like, yeah, wearing this mask, and we're like, you have a backyard, and
you can do it.
you have a car. You could get your car and drive. You
Wow.
know.
What a life.
So, but it's but again, it's like relative, and it's walking in someone else's shoes for just a minute and kind of going, well, yeah, that affects their lifestyle. Like they don't really understand us being in our apartment, and going, yeah, we're going to wait in line for 2 hours to go grocery shopping, but we're going to be okay with that. We're okay. Six
Yeah.
feet, go ahead. You get the cauliflower. I'll let you go. I'll wait till you're done, and then I'll dip in there. So I think it's relative, and I think because we do all live together, we do have a sense of we really do have to work together, and we're better for it. I don't know. I just think
Yeah,
I think we're better for it.
I think so. Yeah. And something we always ask on this podcast is if you had any piece of advice to give any woman like right now, what would you say?
My initial instinct is to say, listen to your instincts. Like listen to your gut. I think that that's a really, really big thing. And it's something that in many levels, I laugh as I say this, is driven my husband crazy for years, because I always say, no, that doesn't feel right. And he's like, what does that mean? We would shop for a couch, and I'm like, nah, doesn't really feel right. Well, do you not like? Do you like the depth of it? Do you not like the curve of the arm? I'm like, I don't know, but it just doesn't feel right.
Mhm.
And then I eventually arrive at why it doesn't feel right. But I just initially, and I've always followed that in terms of work, in terms of, people I've worked with. And the times when I haven't followed it, I've regretted that I haven't followed it.
Uh,
And I also think if something scares you, you might need to go towards what scares you. And I don't mean like a threatening scare. More like, oh, I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know if I can do that. That maybe that's a hurdle that you might have to go over. And there's something good waiting on the other side of it.
mm,
I try to tell my daughter that anyway. I don't know. We try. Let's see. Well, I won't know for quite some time if any of that sinks in. So
I think that's a great piece of advice, or those two things, like go towards what scares you and just really follow your instincts. I think that's really right. Yeah.
I'm hoping.
Melissa, is there anything else you'd like to add to our listeners today?
No, I just think stay strong, right? Right now, that's really what we need to do. And I think self-care, that is important to me. Obviously, I'm in wellness, but I think during this time, there's so much going on. So much, like so many social issues that have really like risen up. We have the COVID, everything has been revealed. And so I think for me, seeking to help others, but I know that if I don't take care of myself, I'm not going to be able to take care of others.
Mm.
And that in turn, once we do that, we can come together. So I think it's okay to say I have to take a moment and take a step back and take a breath, and then go ahead and take a step forward. And having a family, you know, and my friends, and if you, and again, this is like something I've always said to my husband, I have to be with myself before I can be with you. Because I just think we need to be grounded in ourselves, and then we'll be able to go forth and do other things. Self-care is big. Doesn't mean being selfish. It just means self-care, you know? So I think that's the biggest thing. I don't know if that's remotely helpful, or I doubt it's very profound, but that's what I found.
I think it's so helpful. It's great. We all need to practice self-care. I think that's right. And how can people find out about your classes? How can they take your Pilates classes?
So the best thing to do is to go to basefitness.com, because my schedule is on there. As I had mentioned, I'm also through the West Side it should be YMCA of Greater New York, actually, I should say, through Facebook Live. They've been doing a lot of classes, but they will move to a virtual programming come fall as well. So you can find all that on the Y website. Some are on the Hudson, the Parks and Rec, but all of that is compiled together on our website, or I'm on Facebook or Instagram, you know, all those lovely social media platforms, which I've had to learn to navigate and humbly ask my 15-year-old to help me with.
Perfect.
Who's like, boom, 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 here. I'm like, how did you do that? I don't understand. How did you post that? Like, Mom, I showed you. I'm like, well, you have to show me again. I'm like, I don't like get how you edited that photo so quickly. She's like, Mom, you know, but she does help me, so it's a good thing. She definitely does. But yeah, Base Fitness, that's the best way to
Perfect.
find any information. And I'm like I said, I love questions, so people can always email me, and if I have an answer, I'll give it. If I don't, I will try to find it. But I just kind of like, especially in this virtual time, I like to hear from people, because I just like to know if there's anything I can kind of help with, you know.
Great. Thank you so much for being on, Melissa.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. This was terrific. And hopefully I'll see you in class, and I will look for your tiny name box.
My name,
But
you probably won't see me with all the sweat or just okay. Dirty house.
It's hysterical, because people emailed me before they took a lot of my classes and said, do I have to turn my camera on? I said, no, you do not. As long as I see your name and I know you're there, it's all good. Okay. It's all good. So.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much, Melissa.